Hello everyone, welcome to my arcade mode 1cc commentary for Steel Assault, a game that came out about a week ago that I have a review on my channel if you want to check that out. But in this video what I want to do is continue on and talk about the game in even more detail and even more depth, because I will say when it comes to reviewing games, even though you can get a really good sense of how a game feels and game plays in the usual review window and understand the basics of what the game's asking and offering as far as a casual playthrough, I do think that you don't really fully understand a game and really fully get to know where its strengths and weaknesses are until you start doing really dedicated high difficulty runs, at least when it comes to arcade style genres, because this is where you really start to pick up on the nuances and the small details that you're not going to really get in an initial casual playthrough. And this is something that I feel a little bit critical of when it comes to a lot of reviews that you see these days, especially YouTube reviews, where the ecosystem is so time sensitive and okay, the game came out, we need to come up with a review the next day or the day before it even comes out with some people. In the case of Electric Underground, that's pretty rare because I don't get advanced copies almost ever. I think this is one of the very few advanced copies I've ever gotten, if not the only advanced copy, and that was literally a day in advance, so not a whole lot of time to work on an arcade mode clear. But what I'm getting at here is that until you really fully go for these high difficulty mode clears and all that sort of thing, I just don't think you can understand the game as well. So I'm hoping, even though there is a review of the game on this channel, you'll also continue to watch this, because I think you're going to learn a lot, because I learned a lot during the arcade grind here. So now let's actually talk about the gameplay a little bit. So stage 1 I felt okay talking over because it's pretty straightforward. But let's talk about this first boss fight. So the thing that we need to first understand about arcade mode is that it is a severe difficulty spike over normal mode and even over very hard mode. And that's for a number of reasons. The first reason is that you just take more damage than you do in normal mode. Though I think you take the same amount of damage in expert mode. But beyond just the damage buff, the other thing that's really hard about arcade mode is the lack of resources in regards to shields, in regards to the electric shot. You can actually change which type you want on the fly if you hit it. I'll point that out because that comes in handy later on. And of course, health pickups. And what's kind of interesting about arcade mode is that in the first 2 stages, the game sort of fools you into thinking that, okay, you're going to have some health pickups. They're going to be sporadic, but you'll have some. Turns out, no. So all your health pickups are literally in stages 1 and 2. And that's why when you saw me play stage 1, you could see how much more risky I was playing. And even in that boss fight, you get a choice where you can fight him with a shield or fight him with the electric attack. I don't know the proper name for it, so I'll call it the electric attack. And the funny thing is that it's a really interesting routing option when it comes to safety versus offensive power, because obviously having the sonic shield takes damage for you, and that's much better for safety and typically what you want to use actually. But if you want to go for a little bit of speed, you can swap that out for the electric attack that not only damages 3 parts of the boss at a time, but also just does more damage overall, as you'll see here with this electric that I'm using. But the trade-off being is that, if you take a hit in arcade mode, it's a big deal, because think about it, basically every 2 dots are a life, and that's it. Those are all your extends. So I can't read it visually because I'm a little dyslexic or something, but it's like 5 or something in there, right? You have 10 dots, 5 lives, something like that. That's how you should think about it. Because once you get past this stage, there are no more health pickups, or if there are some, they're very well hidden because I couldn't find any. But another note I want to make about the shield weapon, the shield and shock weapon system, is that there is a mechanic about these 2 systems that I was not aware of when I did my initial review, which is if you punch the smaller enemies, you will get ammunition for them. And the way it works is that they have a fixed amount of ammunition or health. Now, when I say health, it doesn't mean you get more hits with your shield, but how long the shield survives, because basically there's a little timer on the shield, and once that timer runs out, it goes away. That's why when you're playing the game and you're first starting arcade mode, you're wondering, wait, where did my shield go? I didn't get hit, so where did it go? It's actually on this little timer, and that's that gauge next to your face, or your profile face on the HUD up there forever. I even tried to look it up on Steam. I tried to look it up wherever I could. I could not figure out an explanation of what the hell that gauge was. I tried to see if I could find a manual for the game. I couldn't find that. It's not in the tutorial, so I'll tell you what it is. That's the health or ammo for your sub-weapons. So there's that. So stage 2 is going to be your first big hurdle in the game. The thing about it that mitigates it is that there's 2 health drops in stage 2. So you can sort of make some mistakes in stage 2 and still be fine. As long as you come into the final section there with only 2 hits taken, you can fully heal. But from this point on, now every single hit matters, because you can't, for the rest of the game, there are no more health pickups, and that makes a huge difference. So let's talk about this boss fight here. So the way I do this is I prioritize trying to standardize all my swings and trying to standardize everything that I do. So what's excellent about the boss design in this game, and I talked about this in my review, is just how intricately crafted it is, and also how much versatility there is with how you want to approach it. Here's something really interesting. So you're going to see me take my first hit, and the thing about that is that was not actually totally my fault, and this is something that you probably will never see again in the history of this game, which is on the night I was going for this arcade mode clear, and this was like the 3rd night in a row I'd been grinding it, and I think I named this stream something like, if I don't get the clear tonight, I'll set my computer on fire. Because the night before, I grinded the game for 6 hours. I stayed up till 5 a.m. in the morning, which I shouldn't have done. Work was really tough the next day. Because I had 2 runs where I literally died on the final sliver of health on the boss twice, and it made me so pissed. And so I was like, okay, I'm just gonna keep playing this game until I get the clear, no matter what happens. I'm just gonna keep going. And so anyway, to make things even crazier, so the next night I come back to grinding again to go for the arcade mode clear, and there's a bug that appears that was not there the night before. So there must have been some sort of update, because some of the AI changes happened. They weren't really that big, but there was a glitch where 2 of the bosses, you're supposed to be able to whip their colored bullets and cancel them. So the one you saw there where I tried to go underneath it, normally what you want to do is you want to jump up there. If you saw my previous runs, you want to jump up there and whip them, and that's the smart thing to do, and it works very consistently. But because of the glitch, if you try and do that like I was doing in my previous runs, it would just hit me because it wasn't canceling the bullets. There was a literal glitch there. So then I had to try to come up with some sort of different route, and it didn't really work out. So no surprise I got hit there. But from this point forward, this is where I'm basically trying really hard not to get hit for the rest of the game, because too many damages, and that's that, especially on the final boss. Though I theoretically could no miss the entire game. I routed and practiced enough to where I could theoretically no miss. And one of those runs where I died on the last sliver of health, I literally, for the last 3 stages, I think it was, no missed them, because I only had 1 sliver of health left myself. Anyway, so this is my challenge on this snake my strategy on the snake mid boss. Probably pretty important to explain. What you want to do is the left head of the snake, when it spawns, is lower than the right side. So you can just stand underneath it and spam it with your upward whip. And you want to keep doing that until it spits that sort of fireball thing you saw there. Then what you want to do is you want to run over to the left corner, jump, double jump, and then do the tether. And the thing about the tether that I didn't realize when I did the review, that I learned since doing the review when going from arcade mode clear, is that the tether is a very, very useful mechanic outside of just grabbing on walls, because it gives you this tiny little air stall. And oh my, that tiny little air stall is incredibly helpful and incredibly useful, and I would say pretty much required in order to get the arcade mode clear in a lot of sections. So I didn't note that because I wasn't as aware of it during my initial review, but I will note it now. So what you want to do in a lot of occasions, you'll see me throughout the run, when I'm jumping, I'll jump, double jump, and then tether onto nothing just to get that little extra air stall. Very useful in boss fights, very useful in the platforming sections, very useful almost all the time. So the tether mechanic actually gets used way more than I expected, but in an untraditional way, which is using that air stall like I mentioned before. So this section is one of the hardest sections of the game, and I would say stage 3 is easily the hardest stage of the game by far. The boss fight isn't the hardest, but the stage itself is brutal, and mostly because of these two sections here. So this one and then the next room. A little bit of advice though. So you see these little robot parts coming off on the conveyor belt? You're going to want to melee punch them, and the reason for that is you're going to get extra health timer for your shield, which is really important because you're going to want that shield throughout this section here, because this is a really dangerous section. And so when you're playing this game in arcade mode, I guarantee this section is going to give you hell. And so I definitely recommend practicing it a lot in normal mode and maybe even expert mode beforehand. But I'll give you the general idea. So the general strategy is there's one rule of thumb, which is never get caught on the bottom. Whatever else happens, do not allow that to happen. So what I do is I sort of make a little muscle memory where I jump, tether, and then attack. Jump, tether, attack. Jump, tether, attack. Do not get stuck into temptation and try and attack twice in a row, because often you'll get stuck. This stupid enemy here. So I watched Iconoclast running. He had this really swag way of dealing with the enemy, which is you attack it and then he jumps in the air and diagonally hits it, which is really swag, and it works, but the timing on it is very tight and precise. And I found my method here is much more consistent. So I guess if you're speed running, you're going to want to use the Iconoclast method of dealing with this guy. But if you just want to get the clear and you want to do it as safely as possible, I think my method's a little safer, which is you just run, you slap it, and then immediately jump away, and then trigger it again. This section here is very challenging unless you know how to route it, that little wall. What you want to do is you want to stand under the wall, whip it once, only once, and then wait for the enemy to spawn. And the thing about it that's important to understand is that the whip has a massive hitbox. The hitbox on your whip is actually much bigger than it looks, which is very useful, which means you can cancel these diagonal bullets with the whip horizontally. Visually, it doesn't look like it should work, but it does. So all you do is you stand under it, attack the wall once, let the guy spawn, whip him, and rinse and repeat. So here we go on this boss. So the name of the game here is you want to get between those bullets, obviously. Now this laser attack, you want to jump over it right at the end there. That way you can get a little extra damage off on this bird. The thing about this bird is it can get kind of tricky unless you just attack it and speed kill it. So you stand under it, diagonal, 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 keep going, keep going. Then its little birds are going to chase after you, and you just kind of run away from them and just keep whipping whatever you do. And if you do it fast enough, you won't go into a second phase, which is nice to avoid. Now this boss, once again, you kind of jump over the beam at the start. Then he does the spin off the walls, like in Mega Man X. This is the trickiest jump here, because if you touch those bombs, they hurt you. And the weird bullets sort of accelerate coming out of him, so you have to be used to that. It's going to hit you the first time it happens because it's so weird. But once you get the feel for that boss fight, it's one of the easier boss fights in the game. It's all about speed killing the first bird, and then just making sure you're used to the accelerating bullets. It's all static though. It's all 100% predictable once you know how it works. And I think almost all the boss fights, except the end boss fight, ironically enough, are pretty static. And the first boss fight has some RNG in it as well. But if you speed kill him, it's not much of an issue and he's not that hard. But a lot of the other boss fights are purely static, and so they're the same every time, which is useful. So here's my little safe spot. Just run back to the very back, turn around, and just whip, whip, whip. Just keep whipping. Just keep whipping until everyone spawn, because your whip will cancel those bullets. And that section can get actually really gnarly if you try and get too cute with it. Here, if you jump, yeah, if you double jump and whip all the way up, as those guys spawn, you can actually catch them coming in, which is really useful. Slide, double jump, then double jump. This is one of the harder dodges in the entire game, this dodge right here, because these bullets are tiny, they're fast, they're diagonal. You're massive. I got hit. I'm about 50-50 honestly on that pattern. Sometimes I get hit, sometimes I don't. That jump was awful though. I shouldn't have jumped, I should have slid. But you know, sometimes your head isn't fully in the game with these types of things. You start to get a little bit nervous when you're doing well and you start doing dumb crap. Such is the story of arcade mode, as you will find. And basically what I had to do is I had to play the game so much and go through it so many times that I literally just memorized all the dumb crap you can do in the game and avoided it. This section here Not too bad if you're really comfortable with your movement options, and especially using that air stall. So what you want to do here, whip, 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 two, just two, jump away, slide under, or run under. And then when he does that that was a really tight squeeze. But when he does the part where he rotates his guns, that's where you want to jump over him and get on the backside. And once he's on the backside, he can't jump backwards. So don't get scared. He'll always jump forwards, and so you can just go to town on him. That section had done me in a time or two before. You definitely want to preserve the shield here, because remember, no health pickups, and you don't want to be dealing with this section without the shield, because there's all kinds of random jank these stupid hoverpack guys, jetpack guys can use on you. Here we go. Now what you'd ideally want to do is you want to punch these guys to get a little more meter in your shield. There we go. Let's see if I get the other punch too. There we go. A little more meter in the shield. Not that big of a deal. I should have had more. But now we got two shields. So there's two sort of timers, the green and the blue. The green is like the second timer, and then the blue is the first. You know, it's just like a little extra timer on the green. So it's always good to get fully green. Punch these guys when they come up, at least the first one, because you want to get more meter on your shield. Otherwise it runs out boss fight. The thing of, oh, okay, that was bad. I think I do kind of a crappy job here, but this fight here, what you want to do is you just want to spam him, and then at the last moment jump over his shot, because his shot is actually surprisingly slow. It's sort of a change-up, to be honest. If you're expecting this fast attack, what usually happens is you dodge it, and then it's so slow that you move into it during your dodge, like right there. That can happen. But as long as you get through it without taking damage, it's fine, because your shield is basically gonna run out during this cutscene. I did have a run where I was actually able to keep the shield, but I felt like the routing that was involved in order to keep the shield was more trouble than just not having the shield, because this section here, as long as you know how to route it, is pretty easy. So you need to speed kill these guys. Absolutely essential. Speed kill this guy, speed kill him, speed kill him. Guys jump out from the sides. Speed kill them, speed kill him, speed kill this guy on the left. Now, speed kill left, jump over the right. There you go. That last guy is a change up. Here's a bit of strategy that's really important. So that section can be an absolute nightmare. That part where that guy was sitting on the platform. What you need to do is right after you get those speed kill sections, run to the very tip of the platform of that ledge and whip, 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 whip with him off on screen, because that will trigger his AI to back up, which you really need him to do, because if you mess that up, he'll just stand there and you can't whip him, and you can't really, you can try and time your jump, but it's really risky, and if he knocks you off, game over. So I had a game over or two on that guy before I found that ledge walk strat, or that ledge strategy where you just stand on the ledge on the very tip of it and just whip, 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 and he'll move back. So you definitely want to focus on the girl boss first. Just stand underneath her. A little bit of a bullet hell, a taste of a bullet hell here. Slide under that. Keep whipping, keep whipping, keep whipping. And one thing to be mindful of is if you don't kill her early enough during that, and she dies, her bullets don't cancel when she dies. So there's times what I would recommend doing is after you kill her, just slide to the right corner just in case, just to be safe, because sometimes she can sort of let off some revenge bullets. Well, not true revenge bullets, but sort of pseudo revenge bullets as she's dying, because they're spawning as she dies, and you'll get hit by them. So watch out for that. This boss fight is very interesting. It's very simple. You just run away from him until he swings his scythe. But really what it's doing is it's testing your precision and patience, because you have to get pretty damn close and hit him with the diagonal attack. But if you do it too aggressively, he'll just step into you and do damage. You can actually take a lot of damage on that fight through pure impatience. And he'll also walk forward after 4 swings. So as you saw there, what you do is you run forward, swing, kind of do a little step back, step forward, swing, because you're not always fully locked in when you attack diagonally. You have to remember that in the game, is you might step forward a little bit each time you diagonally step. That's why I recommend whenever you're doing like close style damage, like on that guy, do like a little dash dance if you're familiar with Smash games, where you swing and then you step back and then turn around, swing, step back, turn around, swing. Just these little step backs to readjust your position. That way you're not accidentally slowly moving into the enemies, which can happen quite a bit with diagonal swing. So you'll notice I'm doing left, right here, one hit at a time. Why is that? Because you want to kill them at the same time, like that. So if you sit there and just attack one and leave the other alone, that's not good. You want them to die around the same time. So that's why you just go one to the other, one to the other. Jump over, do the air stall. That air stall is the black magic, I'm telling you. Because if you try and do that without an air stall, you're not going to make it. This is funny. This section here, where that little cutscene, every time I play the game, I completely take my hands off the arcade stick. Because if you input during that cutscene, you'll die. Or at least in an earlier version, they may have patched that. But in one version, in the early version of the game, if you like jumped or moved, it would throw off the pre-programmed inputs and you would die. So there's a little death trap there. This thing you want to do here is you want to really time that slide, because if you're too early, you're going to get clipped because your invulnerability won't last long enough. And that's not good. You don't want to get clipped because you're going to need every bit of health you have coming into the final boss. Smooth sailing so far, I will say. 2 hits. One I feel was completely unfair because the game was glitched. The other one was on that really tough pattern, which, like I said, is 50-50 of whether I got hit by that thing or not. Overall, very solid run so far. I was actually excited this run cleared because it was one of my better runs. I mean, clear notwithstanding, but like the way the game works though is, like I said, I almost had a clear where I played like crap the whole game except the last 2 stages where I played amazing. This one was more overall good, which is nice. So you're going to want to try and punch those little guys if you can, though don't get too caught up on it, because I had a run where I got too wrapped up in trying to punch little guys and I took a ton of damage trying to do it, and I ended up game overing before I got to the boss. The thing about Stage 5, which I talked about in my review, is that Stage 5 is surprisingly easy, and it really is. Besides a few little traps here and there, it's surprisingly easy, other than the boss fight at the end. And the thing about it is, I'm kind of divided on how I feel about it, because in some ways it's sort of nice considering you have no health pickups, and to have like one more brutal stage on top of the rest would make the arcade mode even more brutal. But I still stand by my original thoughts, where I think they should have beefed up Stage 5, got rid of this section, replaced it with a different style section, or beefed up this section more, and then maybe thrown a health pickup in somewhere, because going basically the entire game without health pickups is pretty brutal. There we go. And these things, you just stand underneath them, jump, double jump, swing. I guess it really tests your ability to double jump and swing, because you got to do that a lot. Okay, this section here, my routing is very risky, which is you have to jump and land at a very particular rhythm there, because you need to stop him. So you actually need to kind of speedrun tech that thing, where you just run and jump very quickly, because if he gets too far on the screen, you're screwed. You're going to take a ton of damage. You're going to get in a really nasty scenario. So it's one of those, it's actually kind of something you see in Metal Slug a lot, actually, where like trying to play conservatively and carefully actually makes it way harder than if you just go balls to the wall and really commit really hard. And you just, the trade-off is you just have to be precise every time, but for me, that's definitely worth it. This bit here, I punched him to get that little extra bit of shield that I could squeeze out. This guy you just want to try and take out. So I've seen sometimes people just go around him, but I had him in a nice position there. So the funny thing is that this room, I think, was built just to drain your shield. It looks cool, obviously, but I'm pretty sure it's just there to drain your shield. Another thing, too, is you keep an eye on the shield meter. The little cutscene here drains my shield. And this shield is super important because there is a glitch in this boss fight. Like I was saying, there's a pattern, a very key pattern of this boss fight, actually, that you're supposed to swing and cancel the bullets, but because of the glitch, the bullets were not canceling. And I know it was a glitch because the day before they were canceling. So one day it worked, one day it didn't. It's clearly a glitch. And I'll show you here it is. So this pattern, I was glitched. So what I had to do is I had to find this safe spot and stand underneath it. The thing is why the shield was so important is just raw hitting that safe spot is pretty much impossible, or really luck dependent, because it's not consistent. It'll move around. But if you have the shield, you can take that hit and then during your invul line up the safe spot. And so that was lucky. There's also some RNG though too, because he could have literally just done the pattern another time or two if he felt like it, and that would have probably been game over. But I got lucky. He only did it once and I was able to get rid of him. here we go, this boss right here. So my strategy for fighting this boss is very different from other people's because it's much more careful. So it's a lot drawn out. So prepare, buckle in. This is gonna be a long fight because my strategy is one swing, run away. Go in, one swing, run away. Swing, run away. And why I'm doing that is because you basically can guarantee a lot more consistency with the fight, with the drawback that it just takes longer and you have to be, you know, more clutch for a longer time. But as far as the actual fight strategy, this method is much easier than trying to be all swag, because this guy has some real RNG to him and he can do some nasty stuff. And what I do here is whenever he does the shield attack, or that charge thing there, double jump and then grapple over the top of him every time. And don't really engage with him when he's standing in the middle of the screen like that, because he can hit you with some real nasty mix-ups. Instead, just let him run himself into the corner and just run away from him. So that's phase 1. Here's phase 2. There's some important advice I need to give for phase 2. 1, do not double jump ever, because if you double jump, your tether won't come out in time and you'll hit the ground and you're basically dead. So what you want to do is you just do a single jump every time he charges, and he does a lot of charge attacks. And then when he's on the ground, you want to just stay 45 degrees, not 90, I learned my lesson, 45 degrees away from him, because there's that nice safe spot with the one attack. And also if he does the green, you can just whip the greens. So there's the general strategy. It's long, it's drawn out, it's kind of scary because it just takes forever, but you can basically no miss the boss using this method fairly consistently. It's just you need to, and there's also sort of an ideal height. So throughout this run, that was frustrating, is because I was nervous, I kept grappling too high. So I'm just too high right now. I need to be a little bit lower, not that much lower, but a little bit lower so I can hit. That was clutch. And then I just landed down there and swung, and I got him. There we go. And I was, that was a little straightforward for the replay because I no missed him and everything, but my heart was pounding because, again, I had 2 runs before, the night before, died on literally the last hit. Literal last hit. I wanted to throw my computer out the window, especially when it happened the second time. First time I was like, oh, okay, that sucks, but, you know, every arcade run tends to have something like that. I had that in Radiant Silvergun, for example. Had that in Dodonpachi. But twice, that's when it gets a little much. But yes, so I was able to get the arcade mode 1cc. What's fun is when you get the Steam achievement, it shows you how many people have gotten it. 0.5% of the player base have the arcade mode 1cc. I'm not surprised though, because it is pretty damn challenging. Like I said, it's a lot tougher than it looks on the surface because, 1, you just never get health upgrades, and 2, there's a lot of things that if you don't know how to mitigate them, you don't know how to get around them, they'll just kill you. And then you gotta do it all over again. It's a real trial of valor. And this is something that I wanted to mention, that whenever people sit down and criticize a game like this for being too short, I will defend this game's length. 5 stages, I think that's perfectly fine. I think stage 5 could have been beefed up more and made the stage a little longer, a little more difficult. But as far as making it like 10 stages, 2 hours, which people tend to seem to want, I actually don't like that style of design for arcade games like this, arcade style games like this, because it makes 1cc grinds insane. Because usually the way the level design works, Streets of Rage 4 is like this actually, where it's like 80% of the game is, you know, level 5 difficulty basically. Then the last 2 stages are level 9. But in order to get to the last 2 stages, you have to play an hour and a half. And so in a lot of these runs, you can play perfectly for an hour and a half, and then, you know, have a bad 5 minutes on the last stage and game over. And then you got to play another hour and a half to do again. It made Mania clears, or whatever the highest mode clear of Streets of Rage 4, which I do have, absolutely brutal. Just the sheer time sink that it included. So I think reviewers need to mention this a little bit more when it comes to arcade style games, that just playing through it once on normal mode is not the full extent of the game. You should continue to play it, at least on expert mode, and just that way you really get familiar with the stage design, the level design, and you start to understand, okay, this is why the game is not 2 hours long. It's because the arcade style experience starts to fall apart at that length. So anyway, thanks so much for tuning in. I hope you all enjoyed it. I hope you all enjoy these 1cc arcade commentaries. I find them to be a lot of fun. Thanks so much, everyone. So thank you to the $5 patrons: 172 PCT Water, Ukshay Wadker, Dingo, Another Joe, Anthony A, Aaron Solis, Ben, Borgie22, Brian Reboot, Brian Shiver, Chris Yuzefovich, Chronic Burnout 3, Corio, Danielle Savage, Darren Griffin, Delta Tango 6, Disco Stas Leia, DJ 420 Praise It, Entropy, Eric H, FCK, Frank Carter, Full Set, Retro Schmupper, Geriatric, Don Maku, Hausu, Ilya, Kiwi, JLab, JB RPG, Joe Angelo, John Kelly, Gameboy Guru, K, K2, Kikoman589, Larridge, Malaise, Mark Toms, Maz, Minung, Mechlin, Mitch LY, Queen Charlene, Nathaniel Davis, and Electron, Neon Dagger Games, Okla Kugels, Philip Mason, Portal63, Rattlecat, Raul, Real Skeen, Shen Sinzensky, SLW, The Boot Rex, The Real Ikuzo, The Old Bensta, TRM, Sugumo, Twilight, Ishi, Plasmo, and Yutsukaya. Thanks for watching.